want to continue your discussion, if you could please take it out to the hallway. These chambers echo quite a bit, and I can't hear what Mr. Cedillo is whispering to me. We're going to get this meeting started. I am Councilmember Jose Huizar. I've been joined by Councilmember Cedillo. Councilmember Englander is in a Budget and Finance Committee and will most likely not join us today. We apologize for the late start. Both Councilmember Cedillo and I were in the Economic Development Committee discussing a very important item, and we were just released now. With that, if we could go to item number 10, which is the Director's Report. The Planning Director is here and available. Welcome. Is there a report?
Good afternoon. Yes, I have a brief report. I'd like to highlight some really good news. The Local Area Planning Commission Awards just took place a few weeks ago, and the City of Los Angeles, including the Planning Department, received first place on 6 of the awards and honorable mention on another one. Real quickly, I'll run you through the awards that were granted. The Small Lot Design Guidelines, Best Practice, our staff Simon Pastucha was honored. The CASP, which is in here in the 1st District, for a comprehensive plan, large jurisdiction, we received first place. So another thank you to Council District 1 for their help in that. And the Warner Center Specific Plan, Implementation in Large Jurisdiction, we also received first place. And I saw one of our neighborhood constituents who helped us with that in the audience, so I'd like to thank them for their help there. And the Mural Ordinance, hard-won victory, working with Councilman Huizar's office. That was a very well-done ordinance and had a great community support, and we're really happy to see that embraced by the Planning Commission. The Public Health Atlas for Innovative Use of Technology, Matt Ramey and Associates, they were awarded first place for their Public Health Atlas. And the Broadway Streetscape Plan Dress Rehearsal was an award of merit for plan implementation. And that was also submitted by Council District 14, I believe. And Concept Los Angeles, Planning Landmark, the 40th anniversaries of the center concept adopted in 1974 by the former planning director Cal Hamilton as an enduring legacy, which is really what we based our framework element off of and on the way we develop our city into nodes and centers, mini cities within the city we call it, all across with regional centers connected by transit and a robust economy. So we're very happy to see those awards from the American Planning Association and look forward to competing at the state level. And the awards banquet will be this Thursday, so we're really excited and hope to see some of the council office staff. And that concludes my report.
Great, thank you, and congratulations to you and your team. Do we have the largest planning department in the country, do you think?
I meet with about 30 of the largest city planning directors from across the nation, I think right after New York. I think New York may be a little bit larger than us, that we do have one of the largest planning departments.
Great, thank you. And just to mention on the Broadway Streetscape Plan, that is the city's largest road diet that we are undertaking. We are extending the sidewalks, taking one street, one lane out, and really what the end result will be a plaza-like atmosphere to reinvigorate and revitalize that street, Broadway, from 2nd Street to Olympic and beyond. So it is very interesting to see how that is coming about. I think there are some growing pains, obviously, because traffic is slower. And eventually we will reroute the MTA buses to other lanes, because right now if you want to get from north or south downtown to the other side, most of our buses do travel through Broadway, but it'll be a more pedestrian-friendly street in the near future so that we could appreciate those beautiful buildings and historic theaters and all the historic history that street brings with it. So it's a great project. I'm
Very
just
exciting
pushing
times.
for that. Yeah, thank you. With that, we'll receive and file item number 10 and move on to item number 5. And if we could read that into the record, please.
Sure. Councilman, item 5 is a building and safety report responding to a motion from Councilman Pharaoh relative to a fee structure to cover demolition enforcement in the city.
Thank you. And I think on this one, all we need to do is instruct the city attorney's office to prepare the ordinance and come back. But we do have some cards, so we'll take up the cards at this time. On item 5, Renee Dake Wilson.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm here as the president of the City Planning Commission and as an architect. Often I find that with the City Planning Commission, I want to rule according to my values and opinion, but I have to instead choose to rule according to the code. In this instance, they're aligned. The pedestrian bridge is contrary to the goals of the Central City Community Plan.
Are you speaking on item 5?
Yeah, we're on item 5, Councilman. The bridge is a different item.
Sorry.
Yep, bridge is
I believe it's item 7.
7.
Yes.
So we will save you for item 7. Okay. And we do have John Girodo or Girodo, one of those two, or none of the above.
Yes, sir. John Girodo with Hollywood Heritage.
Girodo. Okay. 1 minute to speak, sir.
John Girodo with Hollywood Heritage. I was here to support the motion moving forward, and it sounds like that's what the plum is taking under consideration, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Adrian Scott Fine. No Adrian Scott Fine. Okay, on this item, we're moving forward to direct the city attorney to draft the ordinance and come back to plum once the ordinance has been drafted. Okay, item number 6. Can we read that into the record, please?
Sure. Item 6, Councilman, is a motion introduced by yourself relative to the transfer of floor area rights, TFAR, in the city of LA, specifically in CD9 at the LA Convention Center.
Okay, and I believe, colleagues, if we could move this item forward. No card. Yes, we do. Hold on.
There's an amendment, Councilman, as well.
Yes, we have an addendum. The motion should be amended, and to clarify some of the directions, it is a further move that the City Council instruct the Department of City Planning with the assistance of the CLA, CAO, and City Attorney to review the process of allocating and appropriating the TFAR Public Benefit Payment Trust Fund and report with recommendations on additional revisions to the TFAR ordinance that would improve the efficiency of allocating and appropriating the trust funds. I further move that the Department of City Planning, subject to approve the CLA or City Attorney, be authorized to make any such technical corrections or adjustments to these instructions in order to effectuate the intent of this motion. So with no motion, we'll move that item. No objections, so ordered. Okay. Now to item number 1. We could read that into the record, please.
Sure. Item 1 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Esther Hatch to the Harbor Area Planning Commission.
Welcome, Ms. Hatch, and thank you for your willingness to serve on the Harbor Area Planning Commission. And if you could just share with the committee and the public your interest in serving on this commission.
Well, with all the work that I've been able to do, I've had success with the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, the 912 Neighborhood Council Review System. With my work with the Census Bureau in 2000 and 2010, I led both the Torrance office and the downtown Los Angeles office. And currently in my position as the PTA president of my son's school, Lomita Magnet, which is the largest PTA in all of LAUSD, I've had success responding to parent concerns and issues with the community. This is a new avenue for me, and I look forward to learning. So if you'll have me, I look forward to it.
Sure. Well, great. Thank you. Any questions or comments? No questions, and congratulations. We'll move this item to full council. And again, thank you for your service. And this will be in council what day?
June 11th.
June 11th. We'll see you then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 2.
Item 2, Councilman, is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Bricia Lopez to the Central Area Planning Commission.
Thank you and welcome.
Hi,
and,
welcome. Thank you for having me here.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too,
I've been to
Councilmember.
your restaurant.
Thank you.
I've seen you there at your restaurant. Last time was years ago, but thank you, and thank you for your willingness to serve. And if you could share with us your interest in serving on the Central Los Angeles Area Planning Commission.
Yeah, of course. I am not a native Angelino. I migrated here when I was 10 years old, but I've lived in LA for several years. I run a couple businesses here in the Central LA area, and I'm just very excited to contribute to my city, who I love and adore so much, and for the betterment of LA. And I think that's why everybody's here in this room, right? So I'm very excited, and I feel very privileged to be in the room with all of you guys and take on this new role.
Great, thank you. You've been very active in a number of organizations, so thank you for your civic service. And Mr. Cedillo, questions, comments?
Yes, Ms. Lopez, mezcal or tequila?
Mezcal, 100%, all the time. That was easy.
What's
Any
a
other
se-
questions?
What's a semita?
It's a sandwich. It's a sandwich that's native from the state of Puebla, South Mexico. Anything else, Mr. Council Member?
I also want to thank you for your civic participation, your entrepreneurship,
Thank you.
your initiative, and your efforts to help enlighten the broader community about the incredible cultural assets and resources that come from south to north.
Oh, thank you, Council Member. Thank you to both of you for your commitment to the city.
Thank you. And you mentioned Puebla. Puebla is great food. I was there last
Not
year.
as good as Oaxaca, but they try.
What was that?
I said not as good as Oaxaca, but they try.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And there's we have Feria de los Moles here every year at Pueblo, that competition between mole from Puebla and Oaxaca.
Well, we choose not to participate because it wouldn't be a fair competition.
Oh, I know. And they asked me to judge, but I don't judge because I might lose those votes from one of those communities. But thank you. And June 11th as well?
No, Ms. Lopez is on for May 27th.
May 22nd. Okay, great. 27th.
27th, yes.
27th. All right. Well, congratulations, and
Thank
we'll
you.
see you in council then.
See you then, thanks.
Next item 3, please.
Sir, item 3, Councilman, is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Eric Bates to the South Los Angeles Planning Commission.
Thank you, and welcome, Mr. Bates. And you're also an attorney. Have quite a bit of experience as a Deputy Attorney General and public defender, and now with your own law firm, or you previously ran your own law firm, correct?
Yes,
you could
previously.
correct us on that, but if your interest in serving on this commission and correcting me on the bio I just screwed up for you right now.
Well, first of all, good afternoon to the members of the committee. I'd like to thank you, Councilman Wesson, as well as the Honorable Mayor Garcetti, for giving me the opportunity to be here before you today and to continue the great work that the previous area commissioners have done. I have a great fondness for South Los Angeles. I was born and raised here. I was born and
Thank you.
raised in South Los Angeles. My legal career has been here in Los Angeles, and the agencies that I've worked for already has provided me, I think, with an experience and appreciation for serving the community. And that's what I look forward to doing as one of the commissioners. And I live in South Los Angeles, obviously, and I've experienced the great improvement and the revitalization of the area, including the Midtown Crossing and bringing stores such as Lowe's and Sports Authority and Starbucks, as well as the smaller mom-and-pop stores on Washington Boulevard for those that have that dream of having a business. So it's all of those reasons that got me involved. I've always been a very civic-minded person. I teach my girls to be civic-minded and to be an asset to your community, and I want to do that and further, as I said, the efforts that the previous commissioners have done in my area. They've done a great job, and I just want to continue that.
Great. You grew up in South Los Angeles.
Yes.
Yeah. If Mr. Labange was here, he'd ask you, Councilmember Labange, he'd ask you what high school. What high school did you go to?
Went to Culver City High School.
Carver City High School?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, and congratulations for your public law career focused around social justice issues and civil rights and education. Certainly appreciate that. And you're certainly well qualified to serve on this, not only through your educational and professional background, but also having grown up and still living in South LA. So congratulations. And any questions or comments?
No, very impressive. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And this will be in full council when?
Mr. Bates will be in council on May 28th.
May 28th. Okay, thank you. So ordered. Item number 8 and 9 could be taken together, I
Sure.
believe. And if those could be read into the record, please.
Sure. Item 8 and 9, Councilman, are appeals by James Childs. These are CEQA appeals for a 29 multiple-family affordable housing project located in CD1.
Is staff here to present on this item, please? Both of these items, we're taking 8 and 9 together.
Thank you, Councilman Weezer, Councilman Cedillo. The project before us is an appeal of a CEQA determination by the Planning Department, and this is for an affordable housing complex located on South Oak Street in the University Park HPOZ, Historic Preservation Overlay Zone. It's in the South Area Community Plan, and the University Park HPOZ is a area located to the northwest of USC, near the south west corner of the 10 freeway and the 110 freeway. The project itself is a 29-unit multifamily development on what is currently now a vacant school district parking lot. The school district has proposed this project as a project that would be a joint development between the school district and a developer to provide housing for the community that attends the school and for the staff that works at the school. And as part of this, it was analyzed with a mitigating negative declaration as the environmental analysis for the project. And it required a certificate of compatibility from the HPOZ unit of the Planning Department, which was the director's decision, and also required from the zoning administrator's office, required a zoning administrator adjustment for setbacks and a site plan review to allow a joint private public development in a public facility zone. The project went before the University Park Board and was recommended for denial on a 3-to-1 vote. The board architect did recommend approval of the project. The city's own architect at our Cultural Heritage Commission did recommend approval, and there were many speakers at the meeting, both for and against the item. The staff decision by the director was ultimately to approve the certificate of compatibility. And on the director's decision, the zoning administrator's decision, some of the setback issues were denied, but the majority were approved. This decision was then appealed by Mr. Jim Childs of the Adams Dockweiler Group, and it went to the South Area Planning Commission. At the South Area Planning Commission meeting, the South Area Planning Commission unanimously voted to uphold the director's decision and uphold the zoning administrator's decision and to deny the appeal. The same appellant has now appealed the CEQA determination, which goes to council, and that is a determination in front of you today. The major issues that we feel are in contest between the decision of the Planning Commission, South Area Planning Commission and the appellant include the massing and the scale of the project, whereas we found it to be in size. There's contention over the size of the project. There's also contention by the appellant that the University Park Preservation Plan, which functions as a guidelines for development for the HPOZ, that it does not allow any leeway in terms of the guidelines. Our contention is that they are guidelines and not fixed standards, and that for a project of this scale, which is not really anticipated by the plan, which generally involves small one-lot development, this is a 6-lot development, and so it was not really anticipated by the plan. And we feel that this is an appropriate response that is compatible with the community. The appellant is contesting to the otherwise. Lastly, on the issue as far as HPOZs, and we have Mr. Charlie Roush here from the Zoning Administrator's Office who can address the setback issues. Lastly, there was contention that the 20th Street National Register District and the Secretary of Interior standards were not adequately addressed by the analysis, and we believe that the extensive findings of the CCMP and the MND did address those in great detail, and We have 17 pages of findings, actually, that try to address all the details of that. So in total, we ask that you reject the appeal and direct the council to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes your presentation?
One more.
Okay.
This is a tag team, unfortunately. I'm Charlie Roush. I'm the Associate Zoning Administrator on this case. Before me was both the environmental clearance to be adopted, also side yard setbacks, front yard setbacks, and a project permit, a site plan review determination, which is what's required when you have a joint public-private development in a PF zone. This is basically the Norwood School through the Los Angeles Unified School District is doing a joint development for workforce housing on this site, 29 units. It requires a site plan review, which basically requires the developer to develop at the most restrictive zone that's adjacent to the property. In this case, properties are zoned R3 and RD 1.5. So the determination was for the RD 1.5 zone for the development. They got in 25 units that way and then filed for a density bonus to get up to the 29 units of the case. What you have before you is an appeal of the environmental clearance. There is a response to the comments that they made on the environmental clearance within the determination of the zoning administrator. I just want to bring up a couple of important things. The HPOZ board was basically opposed this project, though the director of planning approved it. The mitigation measure in the MND is that if there is a problem with the development in the HPOZ, that the mitigation measure is the adoption of the certificate of conformity compliance, that the project complies with the HPOZ guidelines. That was done by the planning department staff, so therefore that mitigation measure was met. That's basically what the appeal is before you on this particular case, because the HPOZ board disagrees with the director of planning's determination. An important thing for you to remember is that under the code, the HPOZ board may not appeal a determination of the director of planning on these issues. So what has happened basically is they're, through Mr. Childs, appealing the environmental clearance on it. So that's basically what you have before you. We have extensive findings in both reports as to the conformance of the case. One major one was lot coverage, which was probably the most important one that I could see in their determinations. I did a survey of the block, which includes Toberman Avenue, 30th Street, and Oak Avenue, comparing lot sizes and the lot coverage of the primary buildings on those lots. And in doing that, discovered that there are 4 other buildings on the block which exceed the, I believe it's 45% lot coverage, which is the requirement for the HPOZ. So this building is not unique on that particular block, or these buildings, the development is not unusual for that block. There are 4 other buildings that exceed it, and I believe a 5th, but that does not count because it was built in the 1950s and doesn't count as a historic building. So there is precedent for the lot coverage on these areas, for the height of buildings, for the number of stories. There is some dispute that the tallest building technically is a 2.5 story building and that there are no 3-story buildings on this block. In effect, when you have a habitable room and an attic space, building and safety considers that a 3rd floor, so there are 3 other 3-story buildings on the floor, even though technically the HPOZ board is looking then at 2-story buildings with a occupied attic. Building and safety considers those 3-story buildings, so we believe that there is ample precedent on the block that there are buildings of the size, and therefore as far as we're concerned, the MND was effective due to the action of the Director of Planning.
Great, thank you. So first we'll hear from the appellant. We have a number of cards after that. Well, actually, we'll hear from the appellant, then the applicant and/or their reps. The appellant and/or the rep has 5 minutes. All other speakers have 1 minute. So,
A question for the chair, please.
are you Mr. Childs?
Yes, I am. Jim
Yeah, sure.
Childs.
What's the question?
Yeah, there are 2 appeals. Is that 5 minutes for each appeal?
We're taking them together, so that's 5 minutes for both. Yeah.
It's better than 2 minutes for both. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time. Jim Childs for Adam Stockweiler Heritage Organizing Committee. I find that the disagreement between the University Park Board and the director, as well as with the ZA, is not grounded on any merit-based objective perception of the factual record, but rather on an inappropriate bias of the planning department to support the developers, Thomas Safran and Associates. To support this project, the director and the ZA have sacrificed their obligation as administrators of the public trust, eviscerated the University Park Preservation Plan, and undermined the integrity of the HPOZ process. The University Park Preservation Plan has been applied by the board and planning staff to all applicants equally for 8 of the last 9 years. However, when the TSA project was processed by the department, special handlings for this special project were applied to ensure its success. Should the city, by approving the MND, violate its covenant with the community to protect acknowledged historic assets by allowing special privileges for special developers, the result will be a lack of confidence in the HPOZ process by everyone in the community. University Park's 13-year history of a hard-won successful interaction between the board, the community, and the department will be voided. The director's revisionist pronouncement that the University Park Plan is not a plan, but a guideline may be a convenience in allowing for the manipulation of the factual record, but it exposes a fatal flaw in the department's MND procedures. CEQA compliance may arguably simply be met if a project conforms to the whole of an objective plan created in depth to define what specific actions must be taken for such conformance with CEQA. However, a subjective series of guidelines, which is subject to interpretation by possibly ill-equipped decision makers, lacks any fundamental assurance of compliance with CEQA and therefore must require a more thorough CEQA action than a rubber stamping departmental approval. The planning department's individual authorities, the OHR and the ZA, have concluded in concert that the project's MND justifies approval because it complies with the University Park Preservation Plan. This is a fallacy based on erroneous conclusions predicated on inaccurate and manipulated factual data. As elected officials, I call on you to support the University Park HBOZ Board's findings and protect the future of historic neighborhoods. Please reject the project's MND and require a new environmental review process that will examine all of the potential negative impacts of this project. I served on the HBOZ board for 8 years. I'm a professional historic preservation consultant, and this action of undermining the HPOZ preservation plan, which was established in 2005, is a dangerous, dangerous precedent. The developers are seeking approvals, and they're going to get them. And, you know, whether or not there's merit in that is an issue. But the planning department's usurpation of the community's plan, which was adopted after a year of vetting and has served our community for 8 years, must not be allowed to happen. You cannot approve the MND. Ask them to go back and find out what those problems of this project are and if they can be mitigated or not, or whether an EIR should be required. 45 seconds. Yeah. The project is just too big. The underlying zoning is being manipulated. It's supposed to be RD 1.5, but they're using T1. You guys don't need to know all of this stuff. Let the next person come up. It's just an unfortunate series of incidents that can be resolved amicably if there was more cooperation, but the developers didn't need to cooperate with the community because they had the assurances of the planning department that their project would move forward. And it's a good project, it's just too big for the site. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to the applicant. We have two applicant cards. One is Tyler Monroe, the other is Andrew Cross. You could either share your time for 5 minutes. Is there someone else here as well? Or no? Okay. You could share your time for 5 minutes, or you could do 5 minutes plus one afterwards. So whatever you want to do. But I need to know up front so I know if I'm giving you 5 minutes or 6 minutes. You guys going to do it together?
We were going to do the 5 minutes together.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Vice Chairman Fred Gaines of the Law Offices of Gaines and Stacy, on behalf of the project applicant Thomas Safran and Associates, I'm going to try to do the world's first 1-minute CEQA analysis. The entire issue before you is whether the MND is the correct CEQA document in this case. What state law establishes is that the threshold in a case of a historical resource was there demolition, destruction, relocation, or alteration that would impair the significance of the historic resource. In this case, we have a vacant LAUSD parking lot. It is not a historic resource. Here, the project will not harm any contributing buildings within the HPOZ area. The project will be visible. We're not creating an invisible project from some of the adjacent historically significant properties. However, those properties will retain their integrity and will continue to be contributors to HPOZ. A full analysis of the effect of this project has been done. In fact, project changes and mitigations were included in the project. And of course, the project will not result in the demolition or alteration of any historic resource. What was just a moment ago called a dangerous precedent is actually has a long history in the law in California. I've cited you the cases, including a case in West Hollywood where an MND was upheld. The MND was issued for a low-income housing project with historic properties on the site. In that case, there was going to be alteration to the historic resource, and the court upheld that an MND is appropriate as long as the proper analysis has been done. What you heard towards the end of the appellant's presentation was that it's too big, they don't like the zoning, issues that are not before you. And what's before you today is whether this MND is the correct document, whether it's been documented correctly to support that. We believe that's all been done, and in the record I've provided you a letter that details both the CEQA statute guidelines and case law that supports that. And with that, we ask that you deny the appeal. We're appreciative to the staff, to the council office, and the community for their support throughout this process. With me is Andrew Gross, who's the Vice President of Thomas Safran and Associates, who can give a little more information about the project.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. Good afternoon, council members, Director of Planning. Name is Andrew Gross. I'm actually President of Development at Thomas Safran and Associates. Oh, it's okay, yes. You know, I'm here before you, obviously opposing the appeal. You know, this is a project that's going to provide 29 units of much-needed affordable housing in an area of great need. It's for families. The community space is accessible by the entire community. It's a public-private partnership with LAUSD. The land was contributed with LAUSD. Additionally, the project has had a lot of resources from our office in an effort to gain a lot of the financing, including dollars from Proposition 1C, and also we are in the managed pipeline of HCID, which is the LAHD, the former LAHD. So time is of the essence, really. We're ready to apply for tax credits and get this development going, which will again provide much needed housing in the area. Additionally, with us here today to answer any questions, I am here. We also have a former member of, we have a historic consultant who could provide more information if needed. We have a former member of the HPOZ board who can opine on the appropriateness of the site. We also have our entitlement expert here with Mr. Gaines. And additionally, we have the architect. And finally, we have three members from the community. We have a petition that was signed by over 100 people in the community evidencing the much-needed affordable housing in this area. At the ZA and APC approval, we had 20 members come and show up. It says a lot. It says a lot. So, again, I will defer the rest of my time and answer any questions.
Thank you. And your name again was?
Andrew Gross.
Andrew Gross. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Elva Bran. After Elva is Laura Myers. What is your name?
Good afternoon. My name is Elva Bran.
Okay.
And I live in the neighborhood of this project. I'm here today with two other neighbors, but we represent over 100 community members that signed petitions in support of the project who came to prayer meetings. On behalf of the community, we are asking you to deny the appeal by a few and approve the project, which is supported by the majority of the community. We need good affordable housing. This is a great project which is sensitive to the historic nature of the community. Please deny the appeal and approve the project for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Myers. After Laura Myers is Roland Sosa.
Hi, my name is Laura Myers. I'm speaking on behalf of the North University Park Community Association. The problem is this project, as approved, breaks a contract that we all have with the city, in my opinion. That contract was that, for example, the density would be lowered when the Figueroa Corridor General Plan Amendment allowed for a much higher density 8-to-1 FAR, and they were to transfer the density out. The housing element says put the big apartment projects on the corridors, don't plunk them in the middle of the community. The HBOZ preservation plan is an adopted plan. It's not simply a guideline. Everyone wants that certainty, not just developers. The confusion here, you note that the zoning administrator today noted that he approved it as a workforce housing project. That's what it was for teachers for LAUSD, but it's been transferred into affordable housing, which is how it ended up more dense. Not opposed to affordable housing, but it's really too big for this particular historic community. Thank you.
Thank you. Roland Sosa, and then Tyler Monroe, if you wish to speak.
Yeah, Roland Souza, 1338 West 24th. Tom McCauley, the architect, could not be here, so I'm going to be reading some excerpts from his letter that was submitted. The proposed project is entirely against what the Los Angeles Historic Preservation Overlay Zone Ordinance and HPOZ neighborhood zones were created by Los Angeles City Council to prevent. Each preservation plan was adopted by planning staff and neighborhoods to standardize citywide enforcement and to set up measurable values about what constitutes appropriate development and change within each of the HPOZ districts. I'm asking that the council not approve this inappropriate development. Your final approval will weaken the current law by skirting the HPOZ clearly stated development standards and therefore also reduce the effectiveness of the local HPOZ boards with their great depth of experience in these approvals. This will create a loophole that can be used against all HPOZ developments throughout the city in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Shannon Carmack. After Shannon is John Kaliski.
Good afternoon. My name is Shannon Carmack, and I'm an architectural historian with 14 years of experience as a historic preservation specialist, and I was asked to conduct a review of the project to see its conformance for the University Park HPOZ plan. My review, which was included in a detailed memorandum, which should be included in the record that was submitted, found that the project does conform to the University Park preservation plan, and just to summarize a few key results of that, there was a lot of discussion from the appellant about the historical development pattern of the neighborhood, and my research, which was included, found that one of the key important things is that of these 6 lots that are being redeveloped, at least 2 of them had multifamily development on them during the historical period. So just to point out the fact that there's historical precedent for multifamily development. This isn't out of scale with the neighborhood. But to briefly summarize my findings, never mind, sorry.
Sorry. John Kaliski. After John Kaliski is Gene Frost.
Hello, my name is John Kaliski. I'm an architect. I'm a former architect member of the University Park HBOZ board. I was hired by Tom Safran and Associates to do additional research on the context of the block in relationship to the project that was built. We looked at many contextual factors, including bulk, lot coverage, setback, height. Some of the issues have already been raised and talked about. We documented all of those. We felt very, very comfortable in our work that those factors were being very well addressed by the proposed project. Based upon that, I felt comfortable both as a former board member of the University Park HBOZ board and as a professional who works on these types of projects that the buildings are compatible with the context and meet the intent of the preservation plan and the design guidelines that are in the preservation plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Gene Frost, Jim Robinson.
Good afternoon. Thank you for hearing this appeal. If you live long enough, you hear about things and they're completely convoluted from what actually existed. When we went through the process of developing the University Park Historic Preservation Plan, we did consider multiple units and building over multiple parcels that is simply not factually represented by the planning department. And indeed, we proposed that anything beyond 2 parcels, spanning over 2 parcels, ought to have an environmental impact report. Further, the school district eminent domained properties for recreational space for children and took away the land of 17 of my neighbors and residents in order to do a recreational space for children. And for the last 28 years, it has been an asphalted parking lot. And now to add insult to injury, the fact that it's an asphalted parking lot is used as a base to say that, well, anything would be an improvement. That is perhaps true. I would suggest that affordable housing can be built here, but not as exactly constituted. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Robinson.
Hello, I'm Jim Robinson, and I'm Vice Chair of the HPOZ Board. You have a few written remarks, but my problem is I don't know what to tell all the other people who come before our board and expect to get fair and equal treatment. The board for 14 years has dealt with hundreds of applications, mostly from ordinary people. Some of them are small investors, a lot of them are resident homeowners, and they may not like being told what to do, but they understand they need to do it because they know they're treated fairly. This is the biggest project to hit us, and the first one to be overturned. And if I understand Mr. Rouse's argument, it mitigates simply because the planning director declares it so. That's nonsense. You can't have that kind of a system. There would be no point in having HPOZs if the planning department didn't have to follow the rules for everyone.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cedillo, any questions or comments on this?
I'm prepared to move to deny the appeal and adopt the findings of the APC.
Your motion is to deny the appeal, adopt the findings of the APC. Okay. So we'll move that items 8 and 9 with that action. No objection. Okay. Next item, please.
Councilman, would you like to go back to item 4?
Yes, sir. Did we skip item 4? Well, wait a minute. No, we're going to do... actually, let's take 7 first. Yes.
Sure. Councilman, item 7 is an appeal by Palmer Temple Street Properties. They're appealing a denial of a site plan review in your district in CD 14 for a mixed-use project.
Thank you. On this item, which was... Okay, staff report on this. Is staff here on this item?
Good afternoon. I'm Shauna Bonson, Senior City Planner with the Planning Department. Thanks for the opportunity to give a staff presentation. I'm going to start with a little bit of background, and then I'm going to hand it off to Blake Lamb, who's the city planner for the project. The project before you is the addition of a pedestrian bridge spanning Temple Street and connecting two mixed-use buildings that are currently under construction. They were approved by the Planning Department in October of 2012. The bridge was denied by the Director of Planning, and this decision was appealed to the Central Area Planning Commission and upheld at their meeting on April 8, 2014. The Council voted to assert jurisdiction over the Central APC action as described in a motion dated April 29, 2014. The project requires a site plan review entitlement, which looks at the project's design and context with the neighborhood and conformance with the general plan. This isn't a decision we take lightly because it has large impact on the public realm. It involves public property by spanning a public street to connect private uses. Ultimately, the Central Area Planning Commission determined the proposed pedestrian bridge does not meet the required code findings and is contrary to the goals of the Central City Community Plan and the Downtown Design Guide. While pedestrian bridges are not listed as a prohibited use in these documents, the policies contain language that promotes pedestrian orientation and circulation and enhancements to the public realm. It's on the basis of these documents that the pedestrian bridge was denied. The particular bridge does not meet our policies, but is also important because the bridge is the first one to be proposed in the Central City area since the adoption of the Downtown Design Guide. The bridge is a prominent design feature of this developer's prototype in nearby locations. In practice, we don't see these bridges positively contributing to the sidewalk and ground level pedestrian activity. The Central Area Planning Commission found the location of the private pedestrian bridge spanning Temple Street, linking two private buildings, was at odds with the direction and the vision that downtown Los Angeles is moving in according to the policy documents that guides its growth. With that, as I said, I'm going to hand it off to Blake Lamb.
Good afternoon, Councilman. Blake Lamb with the Planning Department. I'm just going to quickly summarize the points of the appeal. Again, the Director of Planning denied this project. It was appealed to the Central Area Planning Commission. So the appellant's appeal of the decision by the Director of Planning generally focused on an existing homeless encampment adjacent to the project site as a justification for the addition of the pedestrian bridge. The appellant contended that the bridge was an important design feature due to safety concerns of future residents. They also had three other points: that the project satisfied site plan review findings. The determination includes findings incompatible with future projects planned for Central City, and that the previously adopted MND should serve as the environmental clearance for the project. The first point is really the biggest point, which is the issue of the health and safety of residents that live, that would be potentially living near chronic homeless encampments. I spoke with the Director of Homeless Services for Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, Jeanette Rowe. She confirmed with me on the phone that there is a small homeless encampment that currently is under the 110 freeway. On March 5th, 2014, her team did a survey underneath the 110 freeway, and they found 4 homeless people at that location. They offered those homeless people housing, and they committed to returning shortly to offer additional services. I think one of the hardest issues that the appellant brought up is that we aren't here today to solve the issue of homelessness. Planning and land use policies are only indirect ways to positively impact the quality of life and social welfare of the citizens of Los Angeles. The City Planning Department and the Central Area Planning Commission does not expect that this particular development can solve the issue of the homeless people that are living under the 110 freeway. But the Department of City Planning policies and the Los Angeles Police Department design out crime regulations do not support the physical segregation of people to address potential adverse interactions. The solution is not to create additional barriers. Better designed pedestrian orientation and better designed projects will positively enhance the public realm and create a perception of responsibility for the public sphere. Regarding the other appeal points, the appellant believes that the project does satisfy site plan review findings. The planning department, as Shauna Bonston explained, relied on the Central City Community Plan and the Downtown Design Guide as the basis for the denial. But if council does decide to uphold the appeal, reversing the Central Area Planning Commission, then they would need to adopt site plan review findings. And regarding the issue of the mitigated negative declaration, the MND did analyze the entirety of the project, including the pedestrian bridge. So if the council does choose to overrule the denial and approve the bridge, then you would utilize the current MND and the third addendum to the MND as the adequate environmental clearance for the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we're going to hear from the applicant and or appellant. We have 3 cards submitted together. All of you together, Greg Smith, DJ Moore, and Raveen Lexing. Are you all together? Yes? Greg Smith and DJ Moore. Okay. And you're going to present together and take your 5 minutes? Okay. Thank you.
It's Raven, actually.
Raven, okay. Sure. I will call you right after they're finished, and then you have 1 minute. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Councilman, would you like me to wait for?
No, you could begin. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Chair Weezar. My name is DJ Moore of Latham & Watkins, representing Palmer Temple Street Properties. We're here today to request your approval of a modified site plan to include a pedestrian bridge as part of the Da Vinci project, which is currently under construction on Temple Street adjacent to the 110 and 101 freeways. As staff mentioned, the Da Vinci project is a mixed-use development in an isolated corner of downtown, bounded by freeways that create more than 2 acres of dead zones under the overpasses. The area contains government buildings, primarily, as you can see, credit unions and parking lots that are active during the daytime hours, but not during the evening hours. This project is intended to reinvigorate this area of downtown with new retail and residential uses, really bringing some activity to an area of downtown that's been neglected during all of our lifetimes. As staff noted, the project is located on 2 sites separated by Temple Street, and we believe it's important to provide an alternative access route across Temple to access the project's internal functions. The bridge would provide alternative access for residents walking to and from the project's gym, pool, basketball facilities, for picking up mail packages, and for custodial and maintenance services. In addition to circulation, we also believe this alternative route is needed because there are no active nighttime uses in the immediate vicinity, and there are safety risks caused due to the freeway overpasses and the hiding places and criminal activity that does take place in those areas. You'll see that the bridge is located at the very edge of the project, so it's not intended to be a primary path of travel. The project includes a new pedestrian walkway across Temple Street. It's going to be a public amenity that will provide a direct path of travel on the street level. We just think it's important to have an alternative at night for residents who are concerned about their safety so they can cross the street. Groups active in the area recognize these safety concerns. We presented to the Downtown LA Neighborhood Council, and they approved this bridge. And it's also supported by the Central City Association and the Downtown Bid. I'd now like to introduce Greg Smith from Palmer to continue.
Good afternoon. Greg Smith, Vice President of Development with GH Palmer. The project here is progressing nicely. It's important to note this isn't the project that was originally approved. We went back and we've done significant things to improve the pedestrian-friendly street along Temple. So we realigned the intersection, and you can see it here in the rendering, to create a better connection for the pedestrians. We went back to the corner where we acquired the single-story Vertigo building for a significant cost. We didn't get any new units, no more FAR. We took down the double panel billboard that you can see there, which was the only thing generating any income on the site. We didn't ask for any signage transfer, and we removed the double panel billboard from the site. We created for the city the public plaza that you see here, additional amenity to the building, and we brought the retail to the corner. And here along Temple Street, you can see we've learned a lot about mixed use over the years. We've been building in downtown for about 15 years. we're about $1 billion into it. And what's important here is to note that we are changing the retail. So we've opened up the windows. The arches are 20, 25 feet high. We've brought them forward, so no more deep recesses in the building. And here you can see we've actually made a request for the council office to assist us with taking back the sidewalk. So we had a sidewalk widening requirement as a condition of the project. We'd like to capture that back. That's 25 feet that we can give to the retailers. We can enhance that, and that'll be a terrific sidewalk cafe one day. That calms the traffic down, that calms everything down on Temple Street where you're going downhill out of downtown. It's important to note when we say the site is isolated somewhat, physically isolated. And what the retailers are looking for is corridors. Synergy is what they call it. Here we are at the corner of Figueroa and Temple, and the project here with the public plaza. But what happens to us is immediately over the overpass, we have a 70-foot grade difference. And it's hard to tell when you're out there, but LADWP in the entrance to Grand is 70 feet above us. That hill really does go up, and there are very little development opportunities going all the way into the music center and downtown. So we are isolated now by a freeway and the physical constraint 70 feet above us. We've talked extensively about freeways. We're surrounded on two sides by 16 lanes of traffic that go 60 miles an hour where pedestrians are not allowed. So programmatically, I'm an architect, I get it. But asking us to make that more pedestrian friendly and put that as a function of a small project like this is very, very difficult. Here's a rendering of the bridge. It's entirely consistent, integrated, open on both sides. And in the distance is the overpass. I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Your time is up, but I do have a question. So the bridge will run parallel to the freeway, correct?
Correct. The bridge runs parallels to the freeway, and you can, as you can see in that rendering, you can barely see it. It's at the elevation of the freeway overpass, and we've actually volunteered a few conditions today. One is to add additional lighting, enhanced lighting under the pedestrian bridge that will hopefully cast some additional light in that freeway overpass area, which is provides a lot of dark hiding places these days. And we've also volunteered to provide $25,000 to the downtown bid to conduct maintenance and security services on the nearby public pedestrian bridges in this area, which we think will help improve the situation in the surrounding environs.
And what uses do you have at the ground level of the building? Is it retail or parking or housing?
It is retail primarily leading up to Figueroa. That is the active retail corridor, and Greg can answer more, but there's also a gym at the ground floor heading down towards the pedestrian bridge. There's I believe the basketball court is also visible.
We've activated the entire ground floor. So on the
you have retail there, primarily retail?
Primarily retail. We put resident services, which is another lobby for the building, and we've realigned the intersection. We've brought the basketball court into the main entry so you can see it. There's windows. They're not directly on the street.
For the retail, if this is considered an isolated area, what type of foot traffic do you expect for the retail?
Daytime foot traffic, so we could do a cafe.
Yeah, but you described this area as being isolated, correct? That there's not much activity here. So how can those retail places succeed if there's really no foot traffic?
Well, we believe it's isolated in that there is little activity in the evening hours. During the daytime hours, the county buildings where building and safety is located, LADWP are all there, and they actually are all in major need of some retail services to provide for them. I mean, food trucks come and congregate in this area, so we actually do believe that there is a good opportunity for retail here during the daytime hours, but it is obviously more difficult at night. So the retail is primarily intended to serve a daytime population from those government buildings that are next door.
Your project on Cesar Chavez, how is the retail doing on those floors now? The bottom floors.
I put the C-store into the corner, and we put the credit union about in the center of Orsini 2. Orsini 1 has our construction office, and Orsini 3 we're waiting for the Walmart to open so that we could create some synergy with that new store. So we see the space across the street. There's a lot more activity, and we'll see Orsini 3 go pretty quick. Usually what you see in the daytime uses is a storefront retail operation that could be a dentist, a doctor. Something that you might see in a strip center, which it would be, you might think of as quasi-office, and we think of it as retail. It has a nice steady flow that comes through. They do appointments. There's no big lunchtime rush for projects like this. Those are very attractive uses for us because it's a nice steady flow of customers that come through the project. So the Cesar Chavez projects are doing very well. The C-store is open, functioning. We've done some deals with the local businesses to bring food in there. We will have the laundromat. It's coming. It's just been delayed in the leasing. So we see that intersection doing very well. And at Visconti at 5th Street, we put the subway in, so we're seeing the national retailers come back to our projects.
Great, thank you.
And
Any
Councilman, sorry to interrupt. I also just wanted to point out, because I do think it's significant. I know that people have had some concerns about some retail in Palmer projects before, and this project represents a different approach to the retail. There is, as you can see, these openings are significantly taller. We're aiming for, and Greg can correct me, but I believe it's 20-foot ceilings. I mean, this is big expanses of glass. The retail is very visible, much more visible than you've seen in some of the other projects around downtown. It's been a concerted effort to make this a better retail environment and to attract tenants.
And that's key. Slow the traffic down, make it very visible, bring the product to the street so that people can see, hey, there is a reason to come here. There's a reason to stop and slow down. The main entry is right here next to the retail, the corner that presents itself. So with the new signalized intersection here, we'll see much more foot traffic being moved to this area. So we're seeing these improvements as very beneficial, but we also know that we're locked in by a 300-foot overpass on one side and a 500-foot overpass on the other. So at nighttime, it helps us function as an apartment project for our residents to be able to cross a pedestrian bridge.
Okay, and so let's take this discussion one step further. So let's look into the future. There's retail on the bottom. There's more activity, more walking around. Wouldn't that make the bridge not necessary since you have that activity going on? Why have that bridge if you have more activity there and it's no longer an isolated area?
We'll have a secondary route in the evening hours. We don't see the retail staying open. It's very hard for the retailers to have two shifts, to have multiple employees. So they have high startup costs if they start in the morning and stay up until late at night, 9 o'clock, so that there's more activity on the street. There will be very few people, and our 1,000 or so residents are not going to support evening hours for a retailer. They're simply not going to be able to stay open and stay in business for the small amount of foot traffic that our project will generate. And obviously, planning, building, safety, those all close down at 5 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll go further with public comment. Could probably leave the boards up there just in case there's further questions or comments, and you might want to bring them up, but if you don't block people there.
Just a question.
Sure.
You guys, were you working with Homeboy Industries? Didn't I see them at the corner at...
Yes, we are. Yeah,
yes.
We're very happy about that.
And are they also working at SC? Do you have them over at your other facility by the...
We have them at SC, so we have it. We're
Cafeteria?
working on our affiliation with them. What we've done at the C-store is to have the ability to make sandwiches.
Right.
But we thought in the beginning it would be very costly until we get the foot traffic going. So we went to Homeboy and said, hey, can you... The retailer went to Homeboy and said, can you bring sandwiches to the Orsini project until we get up and running? Mm-hmm. And it turns out that is a very good relationship, and they'll continue that in all kinds of ways. They do chips and salsa. And
okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Raven Lexheim, and then Renee Dake-Wilson. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Raven, and I am a representative of the Orsini apartment. I'm currently their resident services manager. I know I have a short minute, so I'm going to go over some of the statements that you made. One of the reasons for having the bridge is not just a different option for the residents to use at nighttime when the area is shut down, but also too for our employees. We carry refrigerators, microwaves. We need to get to a building a lot faster due to emergencies, so therefore it's a multi-purpose bridge. It's not just for giving the residents other reasons of security of not using the sidewalk in the middle of the night. I personally work with LAPD, and I do all of the neighborhood watch meetings, and I get tons of emails in regards to the entrapment now, and the statement that was made by the previous party that March 5th that it was a small encampment. In fact, it wasn't. It was a huge encampment, which is actually still there. Due to limited resources based on the city, there's not too many opportunities to have them relocated to a different area.
Thank you. Hey, do you know what's the building right across the street? It's like this cubicle, right? What's there? What's in that building?
Off a Temple.
Off a Temple.
It's actually another bank. It's First School is located on Cesar Chavez, and the credit union is located on the
that big administrative type building.
I believe it's the city building.
Oh, so it is a bank, B of A processing center? Okay, but it's pretty, I mean, it's shut down, right? There's people drive in the parking lot and go right up, right? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Renee Dake Wilson, then David Kapoor. David.
Once more with feeling.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Try it again. So I'm speaking as the president of the City Planning Commission and an architect. My name is Renee Dake Wilson. I'm opposed to the pedestrian bridge over Temple as an architect. I'm really pleased with this building and that it's provided great pedestrian amenities that we've already discussed, from the vegetation and sidewalk improvements, the commercial, the plaza, the building scale, and also the addition of 500 units of housing will provide significant increase in pedestrian activity and therefore safety in this area. This is all in agreement with the Downtown Design Guide and the Central City Community Plan. But the pedestrian bridge is in opposition to these efforts, which would actually have a negative effect on the safety in the neighborhood by removing the eyes and the bodies from the street. Councilmember Weezer, you well know this from your successful Bringing Back Broadway initiative, and I'd ask that you give the same attention to this project. I think you'll also find that the safety concerns raised by the applicant are not upheld by further investigation that staff took into their consideration with their report.
Thank you. Welcome. Nancy Adam afterwards? No, you go right now, David.
I'm David Kapoor. I'm a neighborhood homeowner and business owner, and I'm an architect. I'm opposed to the addition of the pedestrian bridge. I think it's an improper use of this 245 appeal, which is supposed to be for extreme circumstances. That's contrary to the downtown design guidelines. And mainly I'm opposed to it because it's going to create an unsafe pedestrian environment, much like Palmer's adjacent developments on Sunset and Figueroa. The appeal claims that the area is a dead zone, and that's his fault because he's the primary landowner in the area. He has this strategy of creating buffer retail, which is this empty retail. When the Orsini was built, they promised they would activate it with bringing back Barbecue King, which is a business they expelled, and they never did that, so they keep the ground floor retail empty. Just encourage you guys not to approve this appeal of the pedestrian bridge and force the ground floor to be active. Thanks.
Thank you. Nancy, I think it's Adam or Aiden. And then Hal Bastian.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to oppose this bridge. I also am against it. I do work in the area, and I think it's against planning. I think it's going to be poor for the neighborhood, and I'm also very insulted by the 245s that are being called now. And I'll tell you, the community is keeping track, whether it be Councilmember Koretz on Picker's Wall or this recent 245. Added to that, nothing we can do about the negative deck on environmental, but the fact that they really think dual pane windows are going to keep out the sound of the freeway is ridiculous. Again, I'm here to oppose the bridge, and I hope you listen to the community.
Thank you. Hal Bastian, Will Wright.
Good afternoon, council member and members. My name is Hal Bastian. I'm the Executive Vice President and Director of Economic Development for the Downtown Center Business Improvement District. Normally, I would not be in favor of a bridge. However, the public policy here is behind the actual conditions that are going on. And the pink elephant in the room is that we're allowing people to die in the public realm, and nobody knows what to do about it. I'm 5'11", I weigh 187 pounds. There's 20 people now encamped under that freeway. G.H. Palmer is the only developer with the guts to go in and make this investment with these conditions. We need to help these people who are dying in the public realm. It's a human rights issue. But from a business issue, I've been involved with the downtown residential renaissance and commercial renaissance for over 20 years. And I'm an expert on downtown residential. I give housing tours. And this bridge is essential while this area is going through its transition. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Will Wright, Gene Frost.
Good afternoon. Will Wright with the American Institute of Architects. Thank you for your leadership on this issue. Here to encourage you to deny the appeal. To make this street more safe, you beautify it. By beautifying it, by spending money on and applying the resources that, instead of spending that money on the bridge, spend it on landscaping, spend it on lighting, make that underpass attractive. By making that underpass attractive, you make it safer. Regarding the reason that this bridge exists is perhaps maybe there is a fundamental urban design flaw in the project itself. And therefore, you're just sort of rewarding that fundamental urban design flaw. These projects are not successful activating the ground plane. You have a terrible urban blight condition set. I think you're creating a future slum by these projects proliferating. And they're bringing affordable housing to downtown, which is great. We're solving some of our issues with climate plan, by locating housing and jobs together. But we really need to find a better solution, and I encourage you to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Gene Frost, Ezra Gale. Gene Frost, not here. Ezra Gale.
Good afternoon, Chair, Councilmember Cedillo. My name is Ezra. I'm with the Central City Association of Los Angeles. On behalf of CCA, I want to thank you for bringing this motion to the committee. As the residential market in downtown begins to rebound after the recession, we believe that the city should be in the business of supporting residential development rather than hindering it. This is especially true in downtown, where occupancy rates still exceed 97%, demonstrating a particular need for housing, particularly affordable housing. Now, without this housing, downtown will be hard-pressed to attract the new residents that we need to continue the downtown renaissance, which we've experienced these past 15 years. Given various legal concerns, the city and local property owners have little ability to influence the conditions in the public right of way. Now, I've provided pictures for you here today of the encampment next to the location in question, and we believe that the pedestrian bridge will allow both residents and staff to safely cross between the residential portions of the building night or day, and for this reason we support the pedestrian bridge.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was our final card, and first let me say that I rarely, if ever, bring Section 245 motions to council. It's rare that I would insert our district that way after our typical unusual processes. On this one, it was very difficult for me to do that as well, because I am not a fan of pedestrian bridges that take people off the street. In fact, through my work, people know that I'm a huge complete streets advocate, and that I've encouraged to have more pedestrian activity when possible. However, I do think that this was different. For example, this is simply a connection between one residential area to another, not from a residential area to a commercial or a different type of activity. It is also situated in an area that is isolated, but isolated very significantly by that one passway of, I don't know if it's the 10 or the 101, I think it's from the 101 to the 10, and that if you want to encourage more people to come out in the street and use it, you really are, not many people are going to go under that bridge for activity on the other side. And so the only real activity that will be happening there is to cross both of those streets, but not encourage the rest of the street to go on. So after, and to me, the issue of homelessness there is really not an issue. I mean, we as a city have got to do our job to provide better services and provide people who need the help, give them the help. Whether that's a safety issue or not, there are bigger issues involved with that. So that was never really a consideration for me. But although the principles of not supporting bridges, pedestrian bridges, is usually one that I would take, on this one I did see it a little different. I inherited this project after redistricting, and so kind of came into it at the tail end. We did talk to the developer. They've agreed to provide more lighting in the area to encourage more pedestrian activity as well. They've also agreed to provide a bid support so that the Figueroa Street pedestrian bridge, which is constantly dirty and not maintained that be maintained on a more continuous basis, and some other improvements they are making. So that's what brought me to make the Section 245 motion. Wasn't easy, but I do think in this case it is valid to move forward with the approval of the site plan review. So with that, do you have any questions or comments, Mr. Cedillo? Or?
No, I'll be deferential to the home rule. It's in your district. You understand its development. I do think, though, that I do have an experience where I do know that these double pane windows do work. And I know that through my living arrangements. And so, and I am familiar with I think they should be applauded for their relationship with Homeboy Industries. That is not a modest point to consider. And I think that that there is, for daytime retail, you've got the credit union there, you've got the Department of Water and Power, you've got those entities, and then you've got the residents who should be sufficient support. In the past, there has been for the various cafes that have been there. So.
Yeah, and this is a bridge that serves only as a pathway for internal circulation. If people were kind of creating a bridge to get to some other external activity, and you want to create that at the bottom. But it was designed that way, and I really see no other reason to move otherwise. So with that, we'll, with no objection, that would be the action of this movie. Approve the Plum Committee, the site plan review with the added indemnification condition and the applicant volunteered conditions. And we have some new findings that have been circulated, so we'll adopt those as well. Okay, we've got this little package here of the volunteer conditions of the pedestrian bridge lighting and the Figueroa Street pedestrian bridge maintenance and security program, the indemnification, and the findings.
Okay. So you're granting the appeal?
Okay, so we're granting the appeal.
With those modified findings and conditions?
With the modified findings and conditions. Okay, thank you. So ordered. Next item.
Councilman, the next item is...
And before we go on, I do want to thank our planning department, who did a great job does a great job generally on, and Mr. Mike, you have a great team of innovators and great forward-thinking, progressive planners, and they made that their case well on this item. So thank you. All right. Next item.
Sure, Councilman. Next item is item 4. Is a motion, Martinez, Huizar, O'Farrell. It's asking various city departments to report back on the number of legal and illegal medical marijuana dispensaries, and also working with the Office of Finance as it relates to earmarking a percentage of medical marijuana taxes for enforcement efforts.
Great, thank you. Do we have staff on this item? Don't know we do. This is a motion from council. LAPD, sure. You want to come up and just for my own sake, did we have a card? Did you fill out a card or not? You don't have to, but just, no? Okay. No. You could just state your name for the record, please. And
Ann Clark, I'm the commanding officer of Gang and Narcotics Division. I can only speak to a portion of this motion, and that is the mapping. That is being currently undertaken by the department. It's being carried out through the Office of Operations and done by the senior lead officers, because it was believed that they were the ones who were able to best determine where all the dispensaries were within each geographic area. That list is currently in the process of being compiled. It should be done by late May, early June. We continue to believe that there are upwards of 700 plus dispensaries citywide. We should have a much clearer picture on that once the list is done. However, understand that that's a moving target, and this is really just a snapshot of where we are at a given moment in time as dispensaries continue to open and close. The purpose of that is twofold. One is so that we have an accurate picture of the number of dispensaries citywide. The second is for the use of the city attorney's office, who will initiate the process of contacting the dispensary owners and the property owners via letter and then via personal delivery letter via the senior leads in order to tell them to, if you're not on the list of Prop D dispensaries, that you should cease and desist. As to the rest of the motion, we're really not ready to speak to that, as we've not spoken to other city departments, nor do we have a very clear idea from the committee or the council as to what they're looking for on that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And as this discussion goes on, we'll see if we have any questions or comments for you, but thank you for your work. We have someone from Council District 15 here, John Larson. You wish to speak on this item?
Yes, good afternoon, members of the committee. First and foremost, on behalf of Councilman Buscaino, we wish to commend the members of the LAPD as well as members of the City Attorney's Office for their efforts in cracking down on the number of dispensaries that are not authorized under Measure D to operate in this city. However, in our conversations with both LAPD and City Attorney, they have identified a couple of key problems. The two biggest challenges are, of course, the lack of resources in terms of the number of city attorneys we have currently working on this issue, as well as simply dedicating sufficient police resources to effectively identify and help shut down the dispensaries that are not allowed to operate within the city. Another challenge, as pointed out by the media in some of our discussions, is the lack of a check at the Department of Finance process when these dispensaries are applying for the business tax licenses to ascertain as to whether or not they're allowed to operate under Measure D. So on that end, we feel that there is a loophole that currently exists that we certainly look forward to working with your respective offices as well as the city departments in question to help close that loophole and get a better sense of who's applying for these licenses, if they are in fact authorized to operate under the terms of the law, and if we can't add an enforcement as well as a record check component to that to ensure that city attorney as well as LAPD have an idea of who's operating, if they're allowed to operate, and if they're not, how quickly we can move to shut them down. Thank you.
Doug Haynes and Rigo Valdez. Doug Haynes.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Haynes. I'm with the East Hollywood Neighborhood Council, and I appreciate LAPD's comments on this. I think it's a reflection of the frustration everyone has regarding Measure D. We're going on a year now since Measure D was passed, and as far as we can tell, there's been no enforcement on it. There appears to be no enforcement because basically Measure D is not enforceable. I think everyone at LAPD recognizes that, and I think the city attorney recognizes that. But we as a community, which supported the ban unanimously, don't know what to do anymore because nothing's being done. As far as making a list, one of our members of our neighborhood council spent a Saturday afternoon putting together a list within a 9-block radius. We got 54 dispensaries in just that area. And yet, LAPD Hollywood Division still hasn't gotten letters from the city attorney yet to do any enforcement action. So at this point, this is a great idea to do a list. I don't want a delay in a list to be an excuse for delay in enforcement. What we really need is the DEA to come in. That's the only solution that seems to work. I know it worked in Eagle Rock. In East Hollywood, we don't know what to do anymore. I've come here before you for 5 years asking for just one dispensary to be shut down, and it's still operating, even though it's been closed twice and reopened again. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Rigo Valdez, Jared Killon.
Councilman Weezer, Councilman Cedillo, good afternoon. My name is Rigo Valdez, Vice President, UFCW Local 770, representing 72 Prop D compliant dispensaries in the city of Los Angeles. I want to urge the members of this committee to support the Weezer Martinez motion, decide to assist in Prop D enforcement efforts. Prop D was a voter mandate. The measure received over 62% support from voters and achieved a majority in every council district in Los Angeles. We're disappointed that the city's tax and finance department continues to issue LO50s, BTRCs, to collectives that by definition are not eligible for limited immunity protection under Prop D. We've expended significant resources to ensure that collectives preserve their limited immunity under Prop D. Yet we continue to operate in an environment where illegal dispensaries that do not pay city or state taxes operate at a competitive advantage. Earmarking Measure M funds to bolster Prop D enforcement is good public policy, and we remain hopeful that concrete measures described in the Huizar-Martinez motion will speed the process of creating a level playing field for responsible operators. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Jared Killon, Sarah Armstrong.
I'm the owner of the Higher Path, which is a Prop D compliant dispensary. Right now we have over 800 operating medical marijuana dispensaries who are not paying any sales tax or Prop D tax. If we funneled those 800 different dispensaries, patients into the legally operating dispensaries, there'd be a large tax revenue bonus for the city because those patients would now be in Prop D compliant dispensaries. I currently operate at a 25% disadvantage because I am paying state, local, and compliance fees. With that disadvantage, most patients are looking for a less priced quality, a less priced item, so they go to other dispensaries, which is pushing some of the patients to lesser cost dispensaries, which is now pushing our tax base to illegal operating dispensaries. So with that disadvantage, it makes me difficult to operate as a dispensary. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Armstrong.
Gentlemen, on behalf of my own organization, the Greater Los Angeles Collective Alliance and Americans for Safe Access, we are here today to urge you to pass this motion. To demonstrate how urgent the problem is, we prevailed upon the Finance Department to provide a list of LO50s for your district. They are before you now. Mr. Huizar, you have 88 LO50s in your district alone, 137 you share with the 3 members of this committee. The city attorney has hit upon a winning formula and has had over 100 successful cases so far closed. Many more are in the process of being closed. His department has already demonstrated that their methods achieve the results the city needs. Dedicating LO50 tax monies to enforcement will ensure that the city attorney has adequate funds and will speed enforcement efforts. We urge you to pass this motion today and support the city attorney. 2 previous regimes tried enforcement and failed. He is succeeding. Thank you, gentlemen.
Great, thank you. And no matter how you feel about marijuana, its medical use, its legalization or criminalization, the fact is that voters have approved Measure D, which has given us the law for the city of Los Angeles, and certain dispensaries are allowed under Measure D, and those are the 134 dispensaries, and any dispensary that is not in Prop D compliant and are therefore illegal. However, as you speak to any council member, they would all tell you that we have a huge problem with a number of other dispensaries creeping up. Some are fly-by-nights that know they can make a few dollars even after they are told to move on. And I would respectfully disagree with one of the speakers that the city attorney is being successful in shutting these down. It takes way too long for the local neighborhoods. Now, I would suspect and only guess that the 134 dispensaries that are allowed are compliant with all our rules. The ones that come up and fly by night and are not being shut down, and takes a very long time for us to shut them down, are the ones that are most problematic for our local neighborhoods. And so this motion is intended to have our Department of is it the clerk or the finance, right? The finance, Department of Finance, work that we close that loophole so that we have yet another tool to help not allow these dispensaries, the illegal dispensaries, to proliferate. I'd like to add an amendment that we add the council instruct the CAO with the assistance of the Office of Finance and in consultation with the city attorney to develop a recommendation to direct as needed a portion of the medical marijuana taxes and revenues collected by the city to the enforcement against illegal dispensaries and those ineligible under Proposition D. I think this will help us provide additional funding for our enforcement efforts. And so I want to recognize that LAPD is constrained at times given limited resources, et cetera. At least in my district, LAPD and the city attorney is doing all they can, but sometimes it gets very frustrating how long it may take to actually go against some of those, shut down some of the illegal dispensaries. This reminds me, actually, when, I don't think you were here, Mr. Cedillo, but when we had our previous regime and we had the hardship exemption. And so anybody could qualify for a hardship exemption at that time, and so that's where they did proliferate everywhere. And we were compared to having more dispensaries than Starbucks in the city of LA by one of our news reporting agencies. But I think whatever regime we have, we should attempt at all possible to close those loopholes to allow us to enforce our existing rules. So I would ask that we move this motion with the amended language to Budget and Finance Committee, where I think they have some other items there to move forward and make this a package to bring to City Council. So,
Mr. Chair, you may also, since we just came from another committee, talked about enforcement of street vendors, maybe we can move those resources from one group and move them over here. I think it's unacceptable and very frustrating that we can't get these closed. I know that this is one of the biggest laments in my district, particularly in the districts that can hardly use these. A very huge complaint that we just cannot get them closed.
Great. Thank you, and I think this motion will help at the front end where we see what the Department of Finance is issuing the licenses, et cetera. So we'll move this item to Budget and Finance. Yes, sir. You are with?
Office of Finance. Ed Cabrera, Assistant Director. With regards to the motion, our office was asked to report back with regards to the tax revenue related to the taxation of the medical marijuana entities. And since the passage of the taxation ordinance in 2011, approximately $9.9 million in business tax revenue has been collected from these entities. I would also like to clarify that the Office of Finance does not have regulatory authority. We are simply a taxing agency, so the issuance of a business tax registration certificate is for tax compliance purposes solely and not for regulatory purposes. So we do defer to city attorney with regards to any legal issues surrounding the legality of these entities that are operating pursuant to Measure D.
Got that, and we're going to work that out with the city attorney's office, and I think we need to further clarify your authority and that we have a common sense approach to this. So that is part of our discussions we will have with the city attorney in your office so that we could work that out and hopefully come up with something that is a common sense approach to this.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll move this forward, and with no objection.
So, Councilman, you'll adopt the motion with the revised recommendation.
And move it to Budget and Finance.
Budget and Finance.
To Budget and Finance. So ordered. And next item, please.
Public comment.
We have a card? No cards. Okay, see no other business. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.